Alright, I think everything's plugged in. I'm going to start rolling. And we're rolling.
All right, good morning, evening, or afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the One Up Podcast. Today we got a very special guest, a German, Mexican, something or another. Say your name for us because I can't pronounce it. Oh my God.
My name is Jörg Viktor Steins-Lauß.
Yes, that. And of course with me always is George Martinez. And sitting in for Manuel today is actually Adrian Flores, our camera guy. But, we wanted to see how he sounds on his awesome gaming headset, as you see he's got on. Video podcast, you guys. Number 2, let's go.
Appreciate y'all having me on.
Hey,
Fill in.
Always.
So, Jörg, how was the drive back?
Yeah, for those who don't know, he just came from Washington recently in that beautiful snowstorm we just had.
Yeah, so I mean, the ride had a few instances of being god-awful. I mean, for the most part, it was really nice, and from what I know is that the juxtaposition between, I guess, every other state but Texas was pretty nice and dry, with exception of my little instance in Oregon. When I was crossing over to Oregon, to this mountain called La Grande, which is also the name of the town area. We had an inclement storm coming in, and from that the roads began to ice over, specifically whenever we were climbing up this mountain.
Damn.
And the sun was beginning to set when I was getting there, and as soon as I reached the summit, traffic began to come to a stop, and this was an area where they required chains, and it was ostentatiously iced over.
Fuck.
And
Did you get snowed in, bro?
It was starting to snow in, and traffic came to a complete stop, and I was stuck there for about a good 3 hours. The snow and the ice was picking up, and I was just so worried that I didn't have enough fuel to get past this through the night, because I was pretty certain I was going to be stuck there the whole entire night and had to endure this like ice storm and whatnot. But granted, those 3 hours were up and the traffic began to move. And I mean, the other concern I had was, okay, well, now we're moving, but now I have this legitimate concern of the fact that I'm driving this hulking thing, and every time I stop, I kind of slide anyways. And if I drive the wrong way or too quickly, I would just slide off and fall off the mountain. And, there goes Georgie Porgy for good.
Oh, no.
But as we started moving, I think it was the city or the town or the state or whoever it was, had covered the entire fucking mountain in traversable sediment. So it
like
was
sand,
actually
right? Or
I think it was more like some weird level of gravel. It wasn't exactly sand because it was bumpy as hell. But they covered the whole entire thing with that, and it allowed me to drive with a peace of mind, knowing that I wasn't gonna fall off. But it was bumpy as hell. But the moment I landed into town and saw a sliver of civilization, I checked in to a hotel there, and I mean, from there, then that's when I started driving again the next day, and it wasn't up until like I got to Texas and Amarillo specifically, where again I encountered some major shit because some guy, we were driving at night, cut in front of me whenever I was thinking I'm just gonna stop in Vernon instead of Amarillo, and threw a bunch of dirt and ice onto my windshield.
Fuck.
And it made it completely impossible to see. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just clean it off. And the windshield wipers did their thing, and when they did their thing, it just smeared it all over, and I could even see even less. And then I was like, oh, okay, this isn't good. So then I cranked out the windshield wiper fluid, and it just iced over that, and it wouldn't clean anything over. And for a good minute, I was struggling to find a spot that I could see where I could just park myself and clean it off. And I mean, I found a little gas station. I veered off the road for it, and cleaned it off, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm not heading to Vernon. I'm taking it into Amarillo.
But one good thing about Texas though is like there's no mountains to fall off of. At least I don't think so in Amarillo, right?
No, but there are like crazy drivers, and that's one thing that I did want to note is that the drivers were a lot crazier in Texas once you got here.
Oh shit! So you were driving like a big ass box truck, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I was driving a 14-foot box truck, which is a Sterling 360, which I think Mazda manufactures.
Hey, but once you got here, like once you got back home, did you have any power outages, or did you get past after it?
There was no power outages. There was no water issues when I had gotten here.
We had no power for like 2 days, and then we had like no water for a day.
Fuck.
That sounds horrible.
Oh yeah.
I was constantly told by a bunch of people to just shower wherever I was at. I was like, okay.
Just go out in the snow, just play in the snow for a bit.
I kind of do that already, but like they were like, oh yeah, water pipes are busting left and right, and I'm like, oh, that's great. So I'm literally coming into hell from being like up in North Spokane, or up the north in Spokane, where the weather was on average between 27 and 35, and then in Texas apparently it was like 16 and below. I was like, what the hell is going on over here?
Yeah, for a while there, a couple of days, we were actually colder than Alaska, than Anchorage, which is kind of hilarious.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. But at least you made it, man. Like, I know two of my other friends did a similar drive up from Washington down to down to Texas, and both of their cars ended up dying midway through. One of them just died. It was an old car. The other one ended up like slaughtering a deer.
Of course.
Was it recently, or like?
It was a couple of years ago, but still, like the only other two people I know that made the drive. Most people I know just fly.
So what were you working on in Washington?
Yeah, so I was working on a project with Neil McDonough. He's that famous piercing blue eyes dude that was on a couple movies here and there. I know the most famous project of his is I think Walk Tall with Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Oh,
damn, the bad guy. And I mean, I constantly recall him from Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. He was also a bad guy. He's constantly always a bad guy here and there. But no, we had a project over there called Boone, which was a union gig. So like practically everybody there had to be local Washington in order to work on the project. I was there just as a rental house, so I wasn't really doing very much. Except for a couple days whenever we had days off and we were on the down low, we were like, all right, well, let's shoot this out of Washington and Idaho, because Idaho was like 20 minutes away. And I would do like the pickup shots and, shoot, still be a part of the project and shoot something there while I was still there, because like it was like, we brought this dude. Why not just use him and like try to ignore as much as possible on the union rules. Because like it was kind of like a help knowing how much the process was, that they had to like follow this stringent amount of rules to the point where it set back the project quite a bit.
Yeah, man. I remember I was when I was interning at this place called the Country Network. The main guy was telling me basically he was in a union gig when he was younger, and there was a light that was about to fall and hit this lady on the head. He went over, grabbed the light, put it down. Got yelled at by people in electric. They're like, don't touch my light. That's my light. It was going to fall on her. He's like, yeah, that's fine. It's not your light. Let her fall on her. That's some bullshit. But for the people who don't know who you are, what do you do? What do you do?
I first want to start off by saying, fuck union. Because those people are absolute weird-ass fucking robots and machines that I can't for the life of me comprehend. So, I mean, I myself, putting that aside now, I myself am a cinematographer and Steadicam op, but like at this point I've kind of evolved into just taking on whatever role a project needs and just offering like a rental house package, because I mainly own just about quite a bit of things that a feature film will require in order to shoot, without obviously throwing on that crazy price tag from a rental house. So, I'm constantly booked on small gigs here and there where it's like little specs and little skits and whatnot, mainly out of the sheer fact of collecting like a few $100 or 1,000 or so. But at the same token, it's like instead of them spending like between $5,000 to $10,000 renting the same amount of gear, I could just show up and be like, here, take this shit and just give me your entire budget.
Do you have that stuff like insured?
Yes. I feel like that's like a granted thing when you have that much money thrown onto the table that you need to at least be insured because like.
I was about to say, man, especially for that Washington trip, like, if you fall off the mountain, you need some money for your truck.
Right. And I mean, granted, on those level of projects, there's insurance on top of insurance.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd like to make sure that if my camera were to go bust on any shoot, that I can at least replace it with something comparable. Because I mean, like, dropping something like that, I'm just like, fuck. I'm out of a good 40, maybe 50 grand out of this thing now, and
holy shit.
it's not very easy to pick up that kind of tab and just call quits on it.
Absolutely, man.
How'd you get started? Like, what was the first couple projects you started?
Fuck it, man. It was a long ass time ago. I mean, we got started. Years ago at this point, and it was between you and us.
Okay, so the one we did, your little zombie short, that was the first thing you ever worked on?
To a degree. I mean, it was definitely the first thing I did a collaboration with other people, which was with us. And that was the first brush of me just going like, well, I need to get all these things to make sure we can actually shoot a thing. And I mean, honestly, that was like the first, I guess, official thing that I did that wasn't like something involved in school with just like a little
But you
camera.
did do stuff in school? Was it like back in high school or?
Yeah, I mean, I started since middle school, but it was always like very little small films that I just don't want to show to the world because of how like benign they are. And I mean, granted, I kind of feel the same way about that zombie project because I was like, I feel like we needed more fucking money and time to shoot like all these things, but
time, absolutely.
Time or money, if you have one of those things, it helps the project a lot. But yeah, no, that was my upbringing, starting off by on that little film, and then it just kind of moved up from there, where I was just constantly going like, hey, I can help do this thing, and that is pretty loud.
Well, hey. Did they hear us? Because it just stopped.
Oh, gotcha.
Probably heard us.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was just a bunch of like, I'll do this for free, and then eventually I'd be like, okay, this is how much you need to pay me in order to do this exact same thing.
But so, I mean, you said about your charging stuff. It sounds like you charge a lot less than other rental houses. Why is that, man? Why do you go for less?
I mean, it's easy to go for less, mainly out of the sheer fact that you kind of have a competitive edge. From charging a lot less and just offering a lot more than most rental houses. I mean, granted, I feel like I have stuff in my package that most rental houses don't even offer. One of the first things that kind of comes into mind is just Steadicam. There's not very many Steadicam operators, and Steadicam operators that are available typically will charge something that's comparable to my whole entire rental package, and I don't think I'm at the stage yet, though some people would like to argue, to be charging those kinds of prices and be like, yeah, I'm like the most fucking out there Steadicam op, fucking hire me or, suffer. I feel like I'm still on a weird kind of level of upbringing and not exactly at a point where I can charge firm prices and,
So you kind of have a sliding scale on your price depending on the project, or?
Yes, because there's some projects where like my day rate would be somewhere between 2,000 to 3, and then there's other projects where I probably would be like somewhere between 200 to 5. It just depends on what the project is, how close I am to those people, or sometimes I don't even charge at all. It just depends again what the end product will offer to me and who I'm working with, because like if I'm working with somebody I don't really know and I don't really see myself working with, at this point I typically just charge people. But if it's like a buddy of mine who I've been knowing for like 4 or 5 years, I'm like, okay, well, we've been long enough, you got this project, I'll help you out, and we'll make this thing happen, but after that you owe me.
You worked a lot on what was it called? That was a TV series, right? Wasn't it? What's it called? Some
Crimp TV?
Yes, that.
Yeah, that was stuff that I worked with Ramsey, who you met.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Ramsey was one of those people that just happened to be involved in that arena, and I was just like, hey, plug me in because I really want to do this stuff. And since then,
for the people who don't know, what is Crimp TV?
So Crimp TV is like this little horror video kind of like, I guess, YouTube channel that you can watch these little skits that all kinds of filmmakers from all walks of life all over the world make, and plug into this gigantic machine for viewership. And I mean they're making, I feel like they're making an absolute killing paying these filmmakers like next to nothing, and then like selling them off and showing these videos and whatnot, and then they'll have like millions.
Is it one of those deals where it's like, give us your video and you get more exposure from it? It's like the trade this kind of exposure for your content.
Sort of. I mean, like, I know some of the projects, and I'm not sure how much liberty I have to say here, but since I have no legal contract with them, some of the projects they'll like give out like $5,000 or $7,000 for the project, and then they'll be like, here, play with it. But I mean, truly, let's be honest, most people can't really make very much with $5,000 or $7,000. Like, I feel like that's like your whole entire special effects budget in general. They'll hand that out, and quite frankly, I think that they on their end, once they actually release these videos onto YouTube, are probably making a bigger killing off of these things, especially whenever they sell ancillary products that cater to these characters and to these videos, and like have these different myriad of merchandises and are selling to I guess my kind of people who love physical media. They really know their niche, and it's kind of easy for them to just like fucking take cakewalks with it.
Man, are you a practical effects kind of guy or a CGI kind of guy?
I'm very much practical effects.
Yeah.
I like to say I'm kind of well versed in special effects to a degree.
Yeah.
Mainly because my closest friends are all special effects artists, and I myself have come from a haunted house background and dabbled a little bit here and there with like different materials like foam latex, rubber latex, silicone, and sculpting and whatnot, and painting as well.
That's badass. Yeah, I don't know too much about you. The only things that George had sent me were like pictures of you like with a camera. So I put like the dots together like, oh, this guy's a cinematographer, but also this guy likes horror as well, And I thought that was pretty badass. And most of the time, from what I know, horror films are more into the practical effects and stuff like that. So I was just wondering, like, how much into that are you in, or how many films have you done a lot of practical effects with?
I honestly feel like almost every film I've worked on has had practical effects, at least feature films wise. One of many reasons is it's just that there's not enough money for CG, and if they do have money for CG, it's going to look like shit because there's not that much money for CG. And plus, because I always feel like, my buddies can knock it out of the park. I'm like, here's these artists who can do this thing. So, you just pay them, which will be a lot smaller in price tag versus trying to worry about something in CG in post, and it would look much more realistic. For them to just hop on board and do their thing. And I mean, I myself am a hardcore purist to practical effects because, like, at the end of the day, like you'll see this thing, and sometimes when you look at it, even in person, it looks like absolutely insane how realistic it looks.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about keying and feathering in post and whatnot, and trying to create something that wasn't there to begin with. And that's ultimately another thing with the whole practicality of it is that talent has something to work with to visually look at. So if like someone is getting like their hand or their arm or their face or something blown up, they can see that and they can have other people react to that, and it can be a lot more genuine than if they were like just pretending to be screaming at something that they don't really see.
So you chopped their actual hands off, right? Yeah.
There was a movie that I had shot where they had blown somebody's hand off and foot. It's called Redstone, which is also has Neil McDonough, and that's initially where we met him. There was a shotgun blast to the foot, and like the whole thing just kind of blows up, and it was pretty freaking gnarly.
So I know you guys have somewhat of a connection. You both worked with the same guy, Corey Ari, right? Is that his name?
Corey Ari, yeah. So he's a pretty close buddy of mine who I just shot his first feature script called Vice Mayors.
Yeah, I keep seeing that on Facebook, man. I keep seeing posts about it, man. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I mean it's a movie.
yeah. And knowing his style, I mean, yeah.
it's definitely one of those more out there dark comedies, which I feel like is a very niche market. Which I feel like there's some level of horror fans that would appreciate it, but I feel like
I would like that kind of garbage. Yeah, I think I enjoy that kind of garbage.
I feel like if anything, it'd be like something we would enjoy watching. But like I guess the more purist fans of like the fans of the '80s and whatnot, I guess closer to like akin to me, are not very big fans of it, but appreciate that it's a thing that was made. Because it does harken a lot to like some of those stylistic ventures that I feel like is a little bit more prominent in newer films, like the works of like Adam Green that are just kind of, or even like Mandy that are just a little bit more out there and a lot more esoteric. That's kind of like what Vice Mayors is. It's just kind of like a weird amalgamation between the two, where it has like this stylistic color palette at times because it's like very drug fueled. And concurrently it also has these weird little practical puppets and effects and things that happen in the movie that
wow, we're fitting for a horror movie here.
Other faces out here right now.
Yeah, somebody's getting murdered back there. What is he working on?
Okay.
Well, that was a fun little chainsaw distraction. You know, I mean, good time, you know, with the horror movies and stuff. But yeah, I think we left off talking about Vice Mayors, right? You were gonna say something about promotion of that movie?
Yeah. So I mean, it bewilders me how much energy these guys have to promote the fuck out of it, and I mean, I appreciate that they do because like, I think there's a huge testament between I think a couple of us here in this room where it's just like so much work to just share stuff, and I for the life of me just can't do it. Like I always find that even like pictures for things like on film sets and whatnot, I always have to go off of like other people's pictures because I never even bothered taking any.
You know what? Once I got into something where I had to like really promote and push, like whenever I did the road reel with Ryan, I was trying to share it and post it like every day. But try and keep up with it. It was like a daily thing. I'd have to post in the morning, post in the evening, and then try and keep track of it, and then making up new material to keep posting. So it was a lot of work. I was like, these people who like do that for a living are really doing a lot. Like all these Instagram influencers.
Oh, I know it. Like it's a daily job, and I quite frankly like to do nothing in my spare time. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I like to do a lot of things in my spare time, but promoting stuff isn't really my forte.
So, speaking of road reel, have you done any road reel stuff in the past?
I have.
Nice.
I shot one also with Ryan, and man, I have to also say, fucking Ryan has like this sheer amount of energy to just push project after project that I just don't understand where he finds it. But I shot one with Ryan called Candy, CNDY. I don't know if it won anything, but I mean, it was entered into the last one. And I mean, I think that was one of the prettier projects that I've shot, mainly because I had like a moment to actually realize that I had like shot lists and somewhat of previs to work off of and go like, okay, well, I can fine tune this to something that looks nice.
Fucking manual.
Because we did a project with Daniel too, and that's the thing we get on him on, is like having the shot list and actually having it a little bit more thought out than just having the script and just, all right, we're shooting here, but at the moment we're about to start.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, I think the worst nightmare that I usually get into, which is the most common nightmare, is that I work with people who are figuring things out as they go.
Yeah.
And
I don't like that as much. I mean, I used to be like that a long time ago, but once I discovered the beauty of, shot lists and whatchamacallem, picture with the stuff, storyboards that my brain wouldn't want to work there, storyboards and stuff, I'm like, I can't go back.
Oh no, absolutely. And I think the people who appreciate them the most are the people who are in the post-production workflow. And I mean, quite frankly, most directors around the area typically aren't really that involved into the post-production workflow, or if they are, they're really bad at it. So just as long as the footage has someone in like the footage itself, it's good enough. And like they'll like completely be oblivious to like breaking the 180. They'll be oblivious to like these little small minute things that could be fixed in production, or they would just miss entire fucking like shot sequences that could have cut the thing together well, or even scenes entirely, because they just kind of like skimp over it.
Every time I've had like a project, at least the last few, I always try to think it through first, and I'll like even storyboard using the script. So there's like pictures or like thumbnails next to the script as we're shooting, so I'll keep track of it that way. And then I'll stick to it, and then I also make stuff up, but I try and keep everything in my mind as far as that scene, to try not to miss anything. Especially for the last one with Ryan on Dark Horse, we talked about it last time. A lot of it I had in my head, but I was also like taking their inputs. But since I was the one doing everything in post-production too, I was trying to keep it in mind how I was going to edit and cut everything together.
Yeah, I mean, that's a powerful, strong way to go about it. And I mean, I would always encourage most
Sometimes
people.
I'm surprised at the people that don't do that. I'm like,
oh, I know it. Like, they're like, oh yeah, we'll just shoot something and it'll come together. And I think...
Were you there? Jesus had like some friend that was shooting in the apartment, and the guy was telling us where he went the shot. And he just kind of had us take a wide that's like rotating around the room. And then he had us do it over and over. And I think Jesus was the cinematographer on that. And the guy was like, okay, that's it. And then just moved on to the next thing. I don't remember who it was, but that's where I met Alicia Underwood.
Oh, okay.
So I think you were running audio for it that time.
Was I? Oh, I think I was. Was that with Frederick Wright?
Oh, yeah, I heard about that guy. I haven't worked with him yet. I haven't had the pleasure.
He was so mad, like, afterwards. Jesus was telling me that the guy was, like, really mad because he's like, you messed up my video or something like that. They were, like, arguing about the edit, and I was like, this is how you wanted these shots. I'm just giving you what you told me.
It's not magic, yeah. Just one more thing about Road Reel. Limitations, the time limitations, how did you deal with those? Because we struggle on both our movies with that.
Yeah, I mean, time limitations were, I guess, the biggest factor.
Yeah, because like 3 minutes the movie has to be 3 minutes.
Oh, for sure, and that was a gigantic issue with like the deal with Candy, and I mean, I had my own scripts that I wanted to shoot too, but I just didn't have the time to do them anymore. I mean, I had the locations and the people ready to be on standby, but I myself was just like, oh well, fuck, I can't prep all these things like left and right, and like, I mean, going back to the main point is we shot Candy, but it came out to be like a 10-minute video.
And not so. How'd y'all use for Road Reel? Because Road Reel is like 3.
It is 3 minutes, so they cut it down to be like this weird trailer thing.
Oh.
Which it shows it kind of like a little bit more action packed, but I felt like at the end of the day, because of how much they had to cut it down to, it didn't get the point across of what it was supposed to be.
Nah, we had an issue with that with our last year's movie, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's constantly the issue with a lot of people. But, I mean, I guess the biggest predicament with a lot of filmmakers in general is that they tend to not be able to time mentally with a script how 3 minutes will turn out. And I just think that's just out of the sheer fact that most people don't consistently practice shooting things and seeing how it would come out, in post in terms of time. Yeah. Because, like... one gigantic thing is that people think that just because you have like 3 pages that it's going to come out to be 3 minutes. It's like, no, it could be 10 minutes of action each page. or it could be like 30 seconds of dialogue each page. Like it could be a gigantic discrepancy between the bunch. It's just a matter of kind of, again, shot listing or storyboarding and doing a previs, where you would kind of like even imagine like the beats and everything, and how it would cut out and post even before you shoot the damn thing. But I feel like it's more of an art, an esoteric art, to find a director who knows that. Because like, quite frankly, I feel like everybody that I find myself working with typically is just like, well, let's see how it turns out in post. I'm like, okay, well, that's great.
No.
You know, that's always a good feeling to have.
When I'm stuck editing, I'm like, yeah, thanks.
I was like, whenever we did the road reel one for the boxing short, on that one, it's only a page and a half. But I knew that I was going to do like a montage in it. So I was like, that's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah, and that's the important thing, is you have to figure out what you want to shoot first, and then once you get into shooting, you have a better idea. Or actually, not once you actually plan out what you're going on to shoot, it tends to figure out for yourself how much each thing is going to take, especially when you know how you're going to end up cutting it. Like, I think one of the most important components is even knowing what your musical choices are going to be for the shots. That way you can have literal executions of how long this thing is going to be anyways.
That makes sense. I like that a lot. Yeah.
You know,
shooting some music is always fun.
Or shooting your soundtrack or Foley work. But I mean, again, this is just something that not very many people have the mental wherewithal to figure out how they want to shoot something like that. You know, and I'm pretty sure you do, but I think the grand majority of people just don't. They're like, let's just shoot something. Oh, God. Just pay me then.
Yeah.
That's the motto. As long as you're paying me, I'll shoot whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. I don't shy away from any project as long as I get paid. Or, again, if it's like a buddy of mine and maybe they might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, I'll still do it, because it's like you kind of helped me with my upbringing, so yeah. I'll kind of help you scratch your back for a moment, but next time you pay me.
So speaking of friends and friends of the podcast, we had 2 people on who were part of the movie 6 on Amazon, and you were part of that too, right?
Yes, I was the cinematographer for that one.
Nice. So how was your experience working on that?
So that one was intriguing for me, mainly out of the sheer fact that the budget for it was so minuscule, and there was very little for us to rent to begin with. And I know like a word is thrown about how the cost of it was probably like $2,000. I think that's
that's cheap for a feature. That's insanely cheap for a
feature. That's
feature.
insanely cheap for a feature, but that's straying away a lot from the truth. Like, I spent a lot more money myself,
of course,
trying to help make that project happen. But and that would probably inflate it to a good $8,000 to $10,000. But I'm not the director. I'm not the one who's promoting it, so I don't have a component to say, "Hey, you're wrong. That's not it." But I mean, no hard feelings on any of that. It's just a thing that was shot, and a director does have a right to say what they want to say to try to sell this thing. But I mean, in my experience for that one, there was a lot of stylistic choices that I find very endearing for how they came out. But one of the biggest issues that we were dealing with was time constraints. We had 3 days to shoot this entire feature film.
Wow.
And we didn't exactly have the budget for the lighting that it required, especially given the fact that we shot it on a global motion mount, which stops us out at 1.2 stops of light. And shooting it at an ISO below 1000 to make sure that it wasn't as grainy as hell, and it still came out grainy as hell because, again, we were losing a shit ton of light. It was the old Red Epic Dragon instead of the current camera that I have now, Red Weapon Dragon, where it could easily push to ISO 2500 and still look pretty clean. But it's just those constraints that we couldn't really hurdle over because there was just not enough lights. There wasn't enough of a budget to allow us to really figure these things out, and we just kind of wanted to shotgun this thing out, and I think the product itself looks like a shotgun this thing out.
It does, but it's still pretty decent. I mean, for me, I didn't really notice the lighting issues as much, mostly because I have my monitor turned up to almost full brightness when I watch my stuff. So, I had it. So, I didn't really notice that. The only time I really heard about it was when they were saying they were having a screening, and it was kind of really dark. But I feel like that would be more towards the screening house. Like
yeah,
the theater, that would be
so
an issue.
I mean, that ultimately comes down to the fact that the codec for going on to screenings is DCI-P3, and
well, it wasn't just that. I think at the premieres, like they rented out a place that's more like music focused, so the theater's like more music oriented, but they do have projector to set up screenings, but the projector's not one of those like professional movie projectors. So I think that contributed to like
that is color. Definitely a big issue. And I mean that's ultimately what it comes down to, is like, is your projector strong enough to actually project a movie? I mean, that might have not been the case. I don't know. I wasn't at the screening. I don't think I've ever been to a single screening for anything I've ever shot.
I know, even your own production, the one with the zombie one. I remember you were like, I'm shooting something else. I can't be there.
Yeah, I was there for that one. Yeah,
that's always constantly the case.
They thought I was Jesus, which is super funny. I'm like, yeah, I'm fat and bald, but no.
Yeah, that's always constantly the case. I've never been to a single premiere that I've ever shot or directed. I don't know. I'm always shooting things to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, guys, I can't be there. And they're like, what the fuck? Like, we set this thing up, and like you were highly instrumental. I'm like, sorry. I guess it's not that important to me.
You just like the work of it. You just like working.
Yeah, right? I mean, I enthrall the process of actually shooting something, even though like half the time I feel like I'm ripping my hair out. But
you still have more hair than me, buddy. So there you go. Hey,
I'm falling right behind you, buddy.
It's like you haven't ripped out enough.
I haven't ripped that enough yet, but I'll get there.
So about 6, what did you come away with that movie like? What did you learn from that production? How did that affect your future work, I guess?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like 6 was one of the gigantic stepping stones for me, because there was that sudden realization where we had a red epic dragon and we had, decent amount of lighting and whatnot, but it just wasn't enough still, so that kind of like made me want to up the ante with the level of production equipment that I worked with, and being involved more with the process of like actually trying to plan productions a lot more efficiently, because it was just a gigantic hurdle, trying to shoot that whole entire fucking thing in 3 days, and again, it was wild as hell, but I mean, it was a gigantic learning experience from, anybody who tries to shoot a feature in 3 days with like limited amount of resources.
No, I'm sure you run into this problem where like sometimes someone hires you onto something, or they ask you to help on something, and you realize that they have no idea what they're doing, and you have to step in and try and help out the project.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's constantly almost every gig that I work on. But I mean, I've kind of gotten to a point where, where I'm not hired as a cinematographer, and I'll just be like, you know what? It's not my problem. I'm just gonna sit back and let it burn, as long as I'm getting paid.
Sometimes I would think about it in the way of like, oh yeah, I'll do exactly what you're asking for, but I know it's wrong. But I'm hoping this way you learn.
Yeah, I mean, like
that's been my approach to it.
The last few films I've been working on, like I've always seen like compositional errors that they're doing, and lighting errors, and like exposure errors for the camera, and as well as like things where it just wouldn't cut well, for like VFX or whatever, or just in general cutting. And I just kind of sit back and go like, all right, is this what you want? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, cool. Speed.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of directors are picking up on my like saying of like, you sure this is what you want? They're like, I don't know anymore. And I'm like, I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying, is this really what you want? But I guess because of like that level of sarcasm that I exude, they definitely pick up on the fact that I'm just like, wow, this is shit.
Wow, man. Damn. So yeah, I mean, you've been working with more high-profile people and stuff recently, like you said. That stuff in Washington was pretty cool. What else? I mean, so where are your movies at? The stuff you work at, where can people see them? I guess.
I really don't know. I think this is kind of like the same problem with me and premieres. I've shot so much stuff to the point where I know they're out there. I just don't know where because I really don't bother. Because I'm just kind of like picking project after project, and I'm just like, I really don't have time to sit back and actually appreciate these movies. Because quite frankly, none of these movies are anything I wanted to watch to begin with. And I feel bad for most filmmakers, but I mean like it's nothing that I'm like, oh well, yeah, I mean this is something that speaks to me. I don't think any movie that I've worked on has like spoken to me, but there's a good deal of them that are out there. I know. Whitetail, which was like one of the early ones that I shot, I think like about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2. That one I think is released already, and I think you could probably watch it on Tubi or Prime or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it might still be on a package deal because the last I spoke to one of my producers, they wanted to sell that along with Redstone and Boone as some kind of like package deal, and they were going to be on the talks actually tomorrow to see what kind of deal they could get out of that for distribution, because I know they have already international rights for a couple countries, but I don't know the whole deal there. Then I think the only real movie that I know that is definitely out there is 6. I mean, there's a couple commercials, music videos, and little shorts that I've shot, but I don't think they're anything worth writing home for. I mean, a couple of the music videos I've done are usually my most favorite stuff because they're just a little bit more out there. But
nice.
I mean, you would just have to look up the artist for that. But in any case, yeah, I think truly the only movie you can probably watch for certain fact is 6. And what is that? Like almost 3 years at this point? 4?
Something like that.
Something like that.
It's pretty old at this point. I mean, it feels like it was something from the yesterdays.
So, what would you say is your favorite project you ever worked on? Not seeing the final project, but like actually like the working on that project. Like, what was your best experience? Like, favorite thing you worked on, just working wise?
I think the darnest thing in the world. My favorite project that I worked on, and if Joe ever watches this damn thing, it was a little short called "The Torture," which comes out to be a 45-minute short, which in festival guidelines that's typically a feature. Mm-hmm. But that in itself was really fun. It had all these kinds of special effects gags. There was storyboards to work off of, and it was stylistically something that spoke to me. And I felt like in most of my works, the stuff that I typically have that really shines is usually with Joe Monk of Little Spark Films, because he usually goes for shit that I feel like is things that I would have been shooting anyways. And The Torture was just the most easy thing that I've shot, even though I feel like the crew was only like 3 people. And I basically wore almost all the hats with the exception of like the first AC.
Gotcha.
Hey, well, I know you have like an original you've kept in back burner. Have you had any updates on it?
Yes, I do, and actually, quite frankly, I have a shit ton of features that I'm planning to produce myself and direct. But Samhain, which I know is the one
yes,
you're overtly concerned. That one is quite frankly still on the back burner. But for the main reason that I want to release 2 or 3 other films first before that one. That way I can build up some level of notoriety as some like horror filmmaker, than just releasing Samhain just outright, because like, I mean, I can kind of imagine myself trying to like struggle releasing it from the first go around, and then like it just kind of flops. And I'm like, well, I guess my, well, what's the word? I forgot what the word is, but I guess my baby did shit, and it's just from the sheer fact that I was like a nobody. Let's see what else I can do, and like I feel like my other projects typically aren't gonna be as grand, even though I feel like some people are gonna think my other projects are probably gonna be better than Samhain. But nonetheless, I feel like I have to build up on other projects first, which I think the first one I'm gonna do is this little movie called The Grimlers, where it's about this dude who goes out to the woods for vacation, and there he kind of lands these like little gremlin critter things, and it's gonna be basically in the style of like Sam Raimi's Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness,
nice,
with like the amount of slapstick, and it just has these little critter things that are just, you know, attacking this dude who happens to be like an Ash Williams kind of character.
So are you done with the script on that one, or still working on the script?
The Grimlers?
Yes.
The Grimlers is in pre-production. So
already?
That one,
nice.
Yeah, that one is currently in the works. The script is done. Samhain has like about 4 different versions, but I'm still working on the, or at least 4 different finalized versions. I'm currently working on the latest version that I'm trying to prep for, like as the finalized screen version, so I can, you know, finally say it's no longer on the back burner, but literally now post it as like a actual production that I want to aim for. Which, quite frankly, if I aim for Samhain has a very specific timeline that I like to shoot it in, which is like late January to like early April, where Texas generally has like this overcasted look.
Gotcha.
That looks like fall, because like if we try to shoot during real fall, it's just cold, but the trees still have all the leaves, which is not exactly the look that Samhain is supposed to have. Like, it's supposed to look like it's Halloween, but thanks to global warming, we can't have that during Halloween time.
So do you still really want to shoot it in Texas, or would you consider shooting it somewhere else?
No, I really want to shoot Samhain in Texas. Like,
gotcha.
that in itself, I think Texas is, quite frankly, at this point, just from the sheer fact of context that I have, will be the cheapest state to shoot it in, and also the easiest, because like at this point I feel like I have so many goddamn contexts to be like, okay, I just want to shoot at this location, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, it's done. You can build out like an entire cemetery, or we can like you know, cut out all these trees and whatnot and build these buildings and whatnot, or shut down entire town blocks and, you know, build this little festival thing for you. Which I don't think if I were to leave Texas that would be the same case.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I did for one of my classes, I did a news story on one of your productions that you helped out on, Ramsey's production, and you were like, yeah, they let me use the park, cemetery, and all that. I was like, that's cool. You got a whole city just to let you use that stuff. That's, I mean, small town, but still, man, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of like the thing is like, the fact that I have the ability to call people and just like at a moment's notice shoot at a specific location is, I think, a very powerful tool that any filmmaker can have. And
I mean, like the worst thing to say is say no. So I mean, if you want something, ask for it. Just ask for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be the case with anything. If you really want something, you're just going to have to absolutely go for it. And if you don't, well, then you never really find out, you know?
Exactly.
But I mean, I quite frankly usually don't even bother. So it's like, I just let things come to me and they kind of be a big nice, but no, I'd like to interest myself in more of my works, even though like half the time I feel like I'm not really focusing on them anyways.
Yeah, I mean, you got to build up a portfolio to get to the good stuff anyways.
Oh, for sure. Though I think I probably surpassed that moment for quite a while now.
Well, I mean, then get started on your own shit, man. Stop working on other people's stuff.
Yeah.
We want to see Jörg's movies. We want to see like Jörg, other German words movies.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely, not because I'm stroking my own ego, but, you know, the movies I want to make are the kind of movies that I've been wanting to see other horror filmmakers make, where it's like harkening back to like the stupid slapstick 1980s cheesy horror films. And I think there's like a few amount of horror filmmakers that are kind of paving the way for that. One of the most notable ones, which is like my favorite, is Adam Green. But I mean, I feel like he's kind of gotten silent for a moment. I don't know why, but, you know, and then Troma too, but even then Troma is kind of in the weird sidelines too. I mean, I still have to see Shakespeare Shitstorm and see how that turned out. But you know, it's just the fact that I feel like so many of these newer horror films that are kind of coming out, they're not really catering to, I guess, that style of film that had that charm and that watchability. It's more these films that are like very touchy and emotional now. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's like every other film does that, where you try to like have some like unrelatable character be like the whole entire trait is the fact that they're dealing with shit, and I'm like, okay, well, like the old
we're
school
all
film,
dealing with shit, man.
We're all dealing with shit. We want an escape, you know. We want this whole stupid movie where, you know, we can laugh at this dude going through like shit instead of like crying about these people who are dealing with the fact that their mom died or their dog died and life sucks, and you know, there's no point, and then they go like, okay, well, there is a point, and then the point is family or something, and you're like, what the fuck?
See, one of my favorite directors, like the person I got into film, John Johnson, made those kind of movies. You might have heard of them called Skeleton Key movies. Oh my god, they're like the best kind. They're like, I love how bad they are because they're self-aware that they're bad. Yeah, and like, so what he's doing now, he in a couple years ago he put out a remake of Plan 9, and now next he's remaking Manos: The Hands of Fate, bro. That's got to be another level of like insanity. I can't wait to see that because Manos is like considered one of the worst movies of all time, and I cannot wait to see his take on that movie.
And see, that's kind of like a funny way to put it is that I appreciate filmmakers that are doing like things like that because like. Again, not very many filmmakers are making stuff where you would legitimately just enjoy by how shitty they are.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of people work on trying to make things look as beautiful as possible, and they end up turning out really shitty because of that.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like if you go in with that intent, like that obviously gives you like more of a... obviously, the audience is in on it, which makes it so much better and so much more watchable.
Oh, for sure, 100%. Like
for a while, I was like really liking some of those exploitation movies that like Rob Rodriguez was cranking out.
Yeah,
because they did like Planet Terror and then like all the Machete movies. Then you had like Death Proof, but there was oh man, I just kind of I thought about it and I forgot. But Black Dynamite.
Oh my god!
Have you seen Black Dynamite?
I have not.
You need to see it.
It's like a 70s blaxploitation film, but it's like hilarious and it's all like jokes. If you're into film, you see all these things like the mics coming into the shot or like actors being switched out.
Wow!
I need to see that now. And you know that's the kind of filmmaking that I really appreciate, where they don't really take anything seriously and just kind of go home with it. When you mentioned blaxploitation, I immediately registered Blackula. I'm like, I'd love to see somebody making movies like that, but I feel like the people who are making movies like that just don't have the financial wherewithal to do it, and or they just don't know how to make movies in general, and they just make really bad movies.
I'm actually kind of excited to see like the next Doctor Strange because it's gonna be directed by Sam Raimi.
Really?
So Sam Raimi doing a superhero movie, but it's also a superhero that's supernatural.
Yeah. I mean, and I appreciate Sam Raimi for all his shit too.
I liked his Star series because he did Ash vs. Evil Dead, like the TV series.
Yeah. And those were pretty fun, even though, like, I think it died because of people torrenting the fuck out of it.
Oh.
Yeah, Bruce Campbell was, like, pretty adamant about that, going, like, you guys did this to us. And, I mean, it was...
I mean, I'm not going to buy a subscription for one show. I didn't torrent it, actually, surprisingly enough, because I torrent a lot of stuff. As you know, I just found friends who had Star subscriptions. We just watched it together. I'm like, I don't want to pay for it, but like, I don't want to pirate it because like it's a really good show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought the show was really great. I bought the seasons.
I do have the seasons on Blu-ray and DVD. I will say that I bought them like obviously like because they come out on DVD after they already came out. I wanted to watch them as they were coming out, which is why I was
I think
using friends' accounts.
They said that the ending for the TV series was the ending he wanted for like the third Evil Dead, the Army of Darkness. That he was going to end it like that, where he's like in the future, post-apocalyptic future. So basically, you got that ending, but for the series.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a big ode to the stuff that he wanted to do, anyways. The biggest problem I think that he had is just the fact that the viewership for it, for whatever reason, wasn't there, and I feel like it was more of like a timing issue because,
Maybe it's that it's on Stars, but I don't know like big shows from Stars.
I don't either. But I mean, I will be the first to say that most horror fans typically don't watch shows. Most horror fans typically would watch movies, and I will also be one of the guys to tell you I don't watch shows either. Like, That's another thing that I feel like we kind of trolled off onto the woodworks, is that everything feels like it's just kind of catered to just be prolonged instead of just a simple narrative of like beginning, middle, and end. They're just like, here's the beginning, and then we'll release like 10 other movies to prolong the story. Wow. And the whole premise of the whole thing is just the fact that there's going to be more movies. Like I think a notable example of that was The Mummy, but with Tom Cruise, where God. Like the whole sellability of it was the fact that they were going to be a universe, but for Universal monsters, and they completely flopped because that was literally the only point that they were.
And that was like the second attempt at doing it, because the first one was Dracula Untold.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. You know what's funny, kind of harking back, like John Johnson's also trying to do something similar to that thing as well. He had a script for a long time about that, exactly that, doing big Monsterverse. I don't know if he's still gonna do it or not, but he was gonna do that too, which is crazy. But doing that, the whole sequel thing, like, yeah, sure, that's bad, but then you don't get gems like was it Jason Takes New York, like that awful movie, like that movie's garbage, but it's so good to watch because it's so bad.
That's true. Yeah. But like, one thing you have to note is Jason literally dies in every movie.
Yeah.
So
continuity doesn't fucking matter for that series at all.
Continuity doesn't matter. They weren't going like, oh, we're promised that we'll release more movies. It was literally Jason gets killed in this movie. This is it. And then like, they're like, you know what?
Jason in space.
Jason goes to space, and he didn't really fucking die. Like, what? But, I mean, and you can see that even across the board with the other slashers, too, is like Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, to an extent Leatherface. They all get killed off practically in every movie. Yeah. But they just keep coming back because the fans keep demanding them. And, I mean, like, specifically Halloween 3
season. I feel like they always end where it's like, he's dead. Wink.
but I mean, it's not such an obvious wink, because like,
oh, it's super obvious that Freddy versus Jason, like,
the actual wink.
But I think the funnier thing is that Freddy versus Jason 2 never happened.
Oh,
yeah, it's one of those moments where you did want a sequel, because I feel like Freddy versus Jason really captured the zeitgeist of the experience of like the slasher genre, and I feel like no movie will ever compare to the level of like just sheer utter fuckiness that Freddy versus Jason was.
They tried doing it in Japan. You saw like the Grudge versus The Ring.
Oh my god!
I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but I know that's a thing.
Such a weird movie.
Like so something Sakaido or something. I don't remember his name.
It's their names, like the Ghost Girls' names versus. It's like Sayako versus Kayako or something like that.
Something like that. Honda Civic versus
Toyota Corolla.
I was just referencing what was it, Scary Movie 4 whenever that Cindy character goes something in the lines of like Toyota Mitsubishi Sushi Hot Hibachi.
God.
And they put the subtitles and it's like something off the wall.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
I kind of miss having those like parody movies. Like they stopped doing those like
but they got
really well done parody movies.
Yeah.
It started being like the team of these two guys that kind of worked under the people who used to do them, and they kind of completely lost quality.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna say I was actually a fan of those horrible movies, but I feel like everything after Scary Movie 4 just started like going off the rails, where it just didn't have the same pizzazz anymore. And even if they were like to release like those movies now,
it was a team that was doing all those movies, but they were like different from the people who originally started. Because I mean, like, Meet the Spartans was one of the really bad ones.
Yeah, it was.
Then it's like epic movie, but those are the same guys who kept doing these really bad movies.
Well, that makes a lot of sense now. No. Well, I mean, I'd personally like to see like another newer Scary Movie, but I mean, there's
something like Scary Movie or like in the vein of Police Squad.
I mean, they could reboot it with like all the new horror movies that came out in the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, they could, but I mean, like,
I want to see something with more like Police Squad, like the Naked Gun movies.
Oh,
Leslie Nielsen stuff.
I was gonna say the problem mainly with the whole decade thing is I don't feel like there's very many notable horror characters in the last decade, and the few that are
now you can
very
parody
small.
subjects like
parody
maybe like
subjects.
Get Out. You could definitely parody Get Out.
You could definitely parody Get Out. Like I think one of my last favorite parody movies was 50 Shades of Black, which I loved more than 50 Shades of Grey. Like I felt like the theme drove it home a lot stronger than 50 Shades of Grey. Like the whole entire narrative was just a much better narrative, like altogether. And
it's been a while. I haven't seen those. I haven't seen that
neither,
one.
man.
I know the. What's that actor? He's one of the Waynes.
Yeah, he's one of the Wayne brothers.
Oh,
he wrote that, but he also did like try and do like a scary version of it, the haunted house ones.
Yeah,
I think they're Haunted House 1 and 2.
I have not seen the haunted house ones, but I mean, I'll definitely say whoever's like watching this, watch 50 Shades of Black if you have it. It's really stupid and it's great.
Oh my god, it sounds like my type of movie.
There's rumors they're doing White Chicks too.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I've heard, and quite frankly, I applaud the notion, unless it's just something utterly stupid where it's about acceptance and something. I mean, not that I have anything against like acceptance of all kinds of walks of people, but my problem is the fact whenever your whole movie premise is built upon that, and the only quality of like whatever your characters are is like this social justice kind of thing. Yeah. It just kind of like throws the whole entire movie to the wayside, and you know.
I mean, but the thing is, like, at the same time, times do change, and if White Chicks were to come out now, what kind of receptions would it have? It's also like.
Well, I mean, I fully understand that, and I mean that's why like movies like Blazing Saddles can't possibly go under the radar now. It would just be absolutely massacred.
I mean, the thing is that also you got to think if you're trying to make a movie that makes money. You can't. You gotta go with what the public likes, which kind of sucks,
Because the public sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel right now like the loudest voices are the voice of like a minority that's on like just Twitter.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely it. Like, and I don't know how much far out there I'm gonna go now. But I feel like cancer culture is like one of the worst things in the fucking world.
Yeah.
Because like so many opinions are just being shut down, and it's just like. Wow, like nobody can really say anything, and you really have to watch your step on whatever you say or do, and like no one can just be like, you know what, let's just take it as a joke or like push it to the wayside or something like that. Like it's like, no, this can't be accepted.
But
goodbye.
But the thing about cancel culture too is like it's just like they ride a wave and then it's just gone. So they'll forget about it. So like you'll be canceled for a little bit and then. Most of the people are just fine again. Not everybody.
I feel right now what's going on is like they're taking the most extreme examples of what has happened with somebody having these polarizing views, and people kind of following it and being against the people opposing it, just because they don't like that it's being opposed or being censored.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I mean that makes sense. That makes sense in the what's his name, the country guy. I don't remember his name. But he was like he was caught saying the N-word on like on a security camera or something, and so like everybody took him off of everything, but his digital sales and everything skyrocketed because everybody's like, nah, we don't want this guy canceled. I'm like,
that guy got canceled, but I feel like he got canceled after like a bunch of times this thing happened.
Yeah. It wasn't like the first time. It wasn't the first time that something like that happened with him.
And there's always that one coin of like supply and demand where it kind of goes to that where like you guys mentioned that. Something is being canceled. We're the team that doesn't like things being canceled.
Yeah.
And you immediately get a bunch of sales.
Because of it, yeah.
What's funny is like some of the people against the cancel culture, as soon as they see an opportunity to jump on someone who's like on the opposite side, they'll do the same thing to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
feel like that's what happens with James Gunn. That was the thing with James Gunn.
Yeah, but he's back. He's good. He's fine.
Yeah, he's back. But that whenever they went after him, it was basically just, here's one of yours that we could get.
Nah. Whatever. Anyways, so anything else we need to catch up on, guys, or do you think we're about to? This was a long podcast. Oh my god.
Well, Jörg,
what do you
is there anything you want? Yeah. What do you want to plug?
I mean, I really don't have very much to say. I mean, I could just talk about all kinds of haphazard projects, or not projects, haphazard
no,
topics
like
all the time.
ways people can find you.
Oh yeah, I know what you meant.
Because all I know is like your Instagram. It's
so I mean, like if you want to find me, I have my Instagram, which is Samhain Studios, and there you just see me with my crazy German name, Jörg Viktor Steins-Lauß. Good luck finding that one. But yeah, I mean, if you want to hit me up on Facebook, that's a way too. But those are the only components where you can actually find me, because I really don't want to bother with too many things. But if you want to shoot a movie, look up Samhain Studios, or even find me on Facebook, because I'll probably answer you there.
Hell yeah, awesome. And Adrian, do you have something you want to plug?
Dude, y'all pretty much talked about everything. So any question I had, y'all pretty much touched on it already.
You got anything you want to plug though? Any kind of social media or anything for you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at meterman /24, and that's about Facebook and all that. Adrian Flores.
Gotcha. All right, and of course you can find us at Upization on Facebook and Instagram as well for the One Up Podcast. And guys, thank you so much again for listening to this really long and really awesome podcast. I feel like Jörg was probably my favorite guest we've had so far, because his stories are boundless and amazing. Thank you so much for being a guest on this show, man. So again, we are your hosts. My name is Milos Bukarica. This is George Martinez, camera guy, Adrian Flores, and Jörg Viktor something. I don't know. What? Steins-Lauß. Okay. Jörg Viktor Steins-Lauß. I will say it right. I promise I will say it right by the time I die, at least once.
Appreciate it.
All right. See you next week,
Thank
guys.
you guys.
Bye-bye.